So let's take it away from the quick hits and get into the video game subject of the night, if I could find it, and it's right there. And that is, recently the FCC put through a Net Neutrality Act. Now, I still believe it has to go through Congress, if I'm correct, and it hasn't quite passed. But what this act means is that the major internet service providers can choose to give better internet service to some of the bigger sites that pay them to, let traffic go more freely. They give higher speeds to those sites.
They actually already do this to some extent. To some extent, they already do it. They're expanding it to a greater extent. Is the thing though? Is the problem? So
yeah, and so it's not only that that's bad enough. It's that the indie game guys are really coming out. Especially Lorne Lanning. He's the creator of the Oddworld series. They just came out with a new Oddworld, which, if you don't remember those are old school PlayStation games that were actually pretty quirky and fun. And he's saying that this might actually just kill the industry altogether. Now, I was reading a story on
the indie
game industry, because indie games do rely on people downloading their games. The reason they're indie games is because they're not in stores. And this is actually a story from GameSpot I was reading. And he was saying that, hey, let's say we sell our game for $10. Normally, we get $7 back out of that after, the publishing and stuff like that. Now he's saying, what's going to happen to us if we have to give another $3 to $4 to AT&T or Verizon or Comcast just so that people can download our games at reasonable speeds? That takes half of the profitability out of these games, and that really hurts their ability to make them.
Yeah, and for bigger companies, they can put up with this because they sell so much more. Like, that's one of the things with indie games, like, making that 70% on it is actually pretty decent compared to other things that other ratios that other places deal with. Like a big publisher, when they sell to, say, GameStop, their stuff, they're selling for like half the price that it's going to be sold for. So, they're not making as good a ratio as that, but they have so much of a smaller margin to work with in the indie scene because they sell less because they're not as big. They can't publish themselves. They can't market themselves as big, and they're selling for less. So that $7 is still, significantly less than $30. Yeah. Even if it is 70%.
Yeah. And indie games are really. I've loved the rejuvenation of this. Maybe not rejuvenation. Maybe the renaissance is the better word of this industry, because back in the Xbox and PlayStation 2 days, you didn't really see indie games. You couldn't download stuff. You could go to the PC and find indie games, but you couldn't find them on systems.
Well, I guess it depends kind of how you define it, because there were small, you would say, indie level publishers publishing stuff back all the way back throughout game history almost, but they were a little harder to recognize. Their stuff got out even smaller distance because they had to put up the more money for going and stuff. There was more of a stress on getting the license out to a publisher of some sort, getting someone else to distribute, for instance. But these games have existed. There were indie level ones like way back. There were even like indie level ones that did unlicensed games and homebrew games and things like that for systems like the Super Nintendo, the Nintendo, and things like that.
Well, the Atari had a bunch of indie crazy games.
But like you said, like, it was harder to get that stuff out still. Even if they didn't make it, they couldn't make as many, and it was so expensive to make. And it was harder to find out about them. So
well, and nowadays it's almost as easy. Well, I'm not saying that developing any game is easy, but it's almost as easy as saying, okay, here's the game, and go into PlayStation or Xbox and saying, I want to put my game up there, because Xbox has relaxed some of the indie game strict standards. Yeah. And PlayStation is trying to make it as easy as possible for people to throw their indie games out there. So, and then you hit 5, 6, 7 million people. But then you hit 5, 6, 7 million people who can see your game and get it, whereas you might have seen 100,000 people just see your game in the store, and then out of that many people, how many people really buy it? So this is a very interesting.
On the flip side of that, there is the issue though of which makes this a little bit more stressful for the indie gamers. The cost of making games right now, like what is expected out of a game, is getting much, much higher. Like the big name guys, like their budgets keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bloating and bloating. The indie developers don't have that.
Yeah, you saw games like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the big MMO, cost over $100 million to make, and kind of panned. But yeah, you see the budgets go up and up and up. I think every Call of Duty game probably has a budget of 30 to 40 million, which 10 years ago was unheard of.
Yeah, and at some point, like to some extent, the indie developers are still competing with that. Mm-hmm. So it's harder for them. They do sometimes need to put in a little extra money up front to get to that point. So they need to be able to see that they'll be able to at least get that back and survive.
Yeah, and like we have our buddy Chris Chung, friend of the show. He's a great indie developer. I'd actually like to have him on, see what he thinks about this. But I mean, what's going to happen to his games? He makes creative, interesting new games. Maybe it's not the best graphics you've ever seen, but they're all fun. It just expands the universe of games, and now it's almost feeling like the government is trying to shrink it back down. And I just don't appreciate that government.
Yeah, honestly, this was not intentional, but I think he actually has a Kickstarter going for Cat Lateral Damage right now for further development on it. So
well, hey, and Cat Lateral Damage, go back. It's going to be an old show, but we actually had a whole episode where we had somebody playing that game in the background. Check it out; it's actually pretty awesome, and that's Chris Chung. So yeah, support him.
Yeah, check out his Kickstarter. There's 10 days left on it. He actually met his goal. It was a kind of modest goal of 40,000. He's met it now, but awesome. You can still give him some extra funds and get some benefits from getting in there.
And Chris, if you'd like to have a voice actor, I'll do my services for free.
Yes, a cat voice actor. You actually have some extra cats.
I do have some cats. I'll do my best to mimic them. How about that? But yeah, so. But yeah, so I don't like the Net Neutrality Act anyway, and it's number one because it's a very deceiving name. Net neutrality makes you think that they're going to make it more neutral, and they're actually making it less neutral. And number two is when I hear that it might affect the gaming that I love to do, I get extra angry. So I believe there's plenty of petitions out there. Find one online, sign up for it. We want to get this bill killed. I'm actually going to say this. This is something I probably never thought I'd say on the show, is write your congressman. That's a good way to do it. I mean, if they get 100,000 letters from their constituents saying, don't do this crap, they won't do it.
Simple they do need 100,000, though. Like, yeah. Literally 100,000.
100,000 on the dot. If you go 100,001, they might not listen. So let's try to get...
Each senator needs 100,000, too. Like, their constituencies aren't that big, so you need to start writing to other people's senators.
Just write to everybody's senators. What you need to do is write one letter, send it off to all 50 senators. All 50.
100.
All 100 senators. I do know how the government works. All right, I do. But send them out there. Let's pound these guys. Quit this crap. Because not only is this going to affect our video games, but watch. It's going to start affecting things like your instant streaming services, like your Netflix and everything, because they're going to have to raise their premiums for you because they have to pay an extra couple of dollars on every subscriber to get it actually to be able to be streamable. I mean, just think about it. If they slow down their service just a little bit and you have to sit there and watch those circles go round and round and round while it's buffering, who's going to sit through most of those movies? Not many people. So,
on the other hand, now here's something though that I would say against being upset about this for the indie gamers. If they're downloadable games, yes, it'll take a while longer, but I don't see that being a huge deterrent for most, unless they really, really throttle it, so that it's going to take 5 days for something that would otherwise take an hour or something like that.
But that's the thing, we don't know.
Because at least I would be willing to still wait for a download. Like, just put it on the download, go do something else.
And I do that all the time. I do that. Yeah, put it on the download, walk away for an hour or two, and come back and get ready to play.
Now, if it's supposed to be an online game where you're actively doing something, okay, that I can see that causes a problem if you have to buffer every 3 seconds in the middle of a game. But for downloading a game, I don't know. I don't know if I'd care that much I would care, but I'm not going to not get the game because it takes a little while to download.
But still, there's that uncertainty factor there. We don't know exactly how much this will take effect. Are they going to put any restrictions on how much these guys can throttle back websites, or not?
No,
I mean,
they're not.
So if they're not putting any restrictions, who's to say that they say, okay, you don't want to pay us any money, we're going to let like 1 kilobyte per hour go through for a download. And then that means it would take you literally a year to download any file. Literally. Maybe actually longer than a year, because a lot of these, a megabyte is how many kilobytes.
Which is also bad for people like me who are paying for these services. Come on, guys.
Yeah, I'm already
paying
paying you to give me internet, and now you're telling other people that they have to pay you them. Yeah, it just seems like
I don't even care about what you're saying to the other people. If they buy into your stuff, that's one thing. But you better be giving me
what
the bandwidth that I paid for.
Mm-hmm. And by the year 2045, instead of it being like post-apocalyptic ice world out there, we'll have Comcast, the country of Comcast, and the country of AT&T, and the nation of Walmart. What's gonna happen? Because Walmart, they're gonna take over everything. It's gonna happen. Sorry.
It's a brutal state right there.
It is a brutal state. At least they'll teach their employees how to apply for welfare. And then they won't offer it because it's the state of Walmart. So let's stop that net neutrality and support people like Chris Chung. We need more of them. Yeah. But you know what, everybody? I think that's going to about do it for tonight's show.